All right, great. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Policy Saturday. And this is our Policy Saturday number 7. We had 4 last year during the 2022 Naija Policy Hackathon, and then we've had 2 since we started this season of another Naija Policy Hackathon. So you're welcome, everybody. This week, this Policy Hackathon, we are looking at how to write Op-eds. No, please go on, move on to the next slide so that we can take it a bit quickly because we have lost about 5 minutes. And in case you're coming in and joining us for the first time, this Policy Saturday is being hosted by the Policy Shapers. And Policy Shapers is a registered private company limited by guarantee, and it's a civic startup that empowers young people with the knowledge, skills, and tools they need to engage with public policy. So really, that's what we're about. In summary, we're a sort of like a policy institution. This is an overview of our work and the things we've done so far. We've provided policy advisory to the government of the Republic of Korea. We've participated in 3 global policy hackathons. We've hosted policy dialogues, developed policy frameworks in collaboration with universities, and even contributed to the review of the JAMB bill. And of course, one of our biggest and most visible work is the Reform IELTS campaign that we've been engaged in. Let's move on. So Naija Policy Hackathon is not just like a one-off event where people come together and we bounce off policy ideas. No, it really starts off with the Policy Saturdays where we share topics and issues around the policy space, either policy formulation or policy advocacy, engagement of stakeholders, research, and then, eventually publishing it. So that's sort of like the start. And then we have the hackathon itself, followed by a series of conversations with various categories of stakeholders and actual policy advocacy engagements on some of those burning issues that will stem out of the Naija Policy Hackathon. So what we see there is really the date for the 2023 hackathon. It's from Friday, August 11th through the weekend to Sunday, August 13th. And the theme of the policy hackathon is people-centered policies for nation building. So if you haven't applied, please apply on or before 25th of July, which is just around the corner. So we encourage you to apply, and then we can move right into so this is just giving you some additional information on the work we did last year. You can go on our YouTube page and check it out. We'll put the link, we'll copy the link and put it up so that you can take a look at what we did last year and all the previous Policy Saturday conversations that we've had since 2022. They're all up on our YouTube channel. So let's delve right into today's Policy Hackathon, how to write Op-eds, and that will be taken by Ebenezar Wikina and Charles Asiegbu. Let's move on to the next slide. So I do a quick introduction of Ebenezar Wikina and Charles Asiegbu. Right, so Ebenezar Wikina, you might be more familiar with him. Both of them are Bridges Fellows at the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, NESG, the country's leading policy think tank and policy dialogue platform. And Charles is a senior policy analyst at the Nextia Group, while Ebenezar is the team lead at Policy Shaper. So they'll be taking us through how to write opinion editorials, especially when you have done your policy ideas, how to carry it forward, how to disseminate, your information, your drive, your research, what you would like to see different in society. So they'll be talking us through how to make that, how to really, sort of like start a movement around those policy ideas. So I'll call on you very quickly, Ben, or Charles, let me see, to kickstart today's section. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Terry. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. And Charles for joining us. It's really great that we get to do this together. Just as Terry said, some of our time has been spent. It's already 10 minutes past 4. So we would quickly just go into the session. We'll talk a bit about what are op-eds, the history of op-eds, where they fit into the spectrum of writing, and how you can pretty much, look at the various guides on writing op-eds. Charles will share an example from the Harvard Kennedy School, and then we'll show you like just some samples of op-eds we've written in the past as, we wrote an op-ed together, but also op-eds we've written together and written individually too, just to show you what the various forms op-eds can take and what are some do's and don'ts that you should pretty much look out for when you write. Okay, so editorials are columns written by a member of a publications board. So newspapers often have editorials, and there's an editorial board for all of the newspapers that exist. And either a member or collectively as a board, they write an editorial. And the editorial usually forms like the opinion of the newspaper on a particular subject, issue, an area, something that is burning, like a burning issue, and they're just trying to like chime in. And that's what an editorial is. So it's the newspaper's opinion, sort of. But on the other hand, op-eds, some people call them opinion editorials. When they first started, they were called opposite the editorial page. They pretty much are opinions of readers, individuals, experts, pretty much just anyone apart from the newspaper board who has a thought, who has an idea, who has something to share, in a way that is very compelling and wants to make an argument for a particular issue. And again, this, just as Terry said, this will fit very well into the work that we're all doing, because as you saw, the progression from Policy Saturday to Hackathon to discussions and then obviously to advocacy, one of the things we hope we can do this year is ensure that we have, people who can write op-eds, the winning teams, and also just other participants write op-eds on the idea, whatever thoughts it is that they have, and then use that as a form of advocacy, for their policy idea. So that's what op-eds are generally. The first modern op-ed was published in 1970. And since that time, op-eds have evolved. There are various forms of writing. Some people use cartoons, some people use, different forms of data points, to put out their work. And just to give you a tip, so it's usually tough to get journalists to come write about an issue. So for example, you have a policy idea, right? It's often tough to get a journalist to come and say, I have a policy idea, come and write about my policy idea. It's often tough because no one really has that kind of time. They have so many stories they're chasing. But the opinion page on every newspaper or the op-ed page is the easiest page to get on. Once you have a good idea, good concrete idea, and you follow the steps that Charles and I are going to share, you can have an opportunity to publish your work and publish your idea without having to look for a journalist to come cover your story by yourself. You understand? So on your own, you can write your idea in a form that makes sense. So the screenshot is not super clear, but this just shows you examples between an editorial, which Punch wrote. Punch wrote this editorial in, I think this was in 2022. This was February 2022, during the height of the Reform IELTS campaign. And then at the right, you have an op-ed, which the team wrote on as well, where we're asking the UK to reform IELTS. And then on the left, you have, Punch saying their own thoughts and their own, opinions, pretty much the editorial board's opinion on why they think English tests are exploitative for Nigerians. So just always look out for that, just so you know that there's a difference between op-eds and eds or editorial. So if you look at the spectrum, when I think about writing, and when Charles and I think about writing, this is often the way that we see it. So a research report is at the other end, because in many ways, a research report is scientific, right? You have an observation, it becomes a hypothesis, you go through the entire process, do research, have questions, go through and get data up on the point where you come to a conclusion and say, this is what I've come to say, and this is the research, this is a report of that research. Research reports are actually very bulky. There are some research reports that can go up to like 500 pages that I've seen, so it depends on whatever topic they are trying to research. But if you move a bit just below research report, I think you can find policy memos there. Policy memos are not fully like research reports, because research reports, you go to research reports without like an opinion. You might have an observation, but you don't like have a fully formed opinion. You want to see where this whole thing takes you, right? Through the whole scientific process. But with policy memos, you have an idea. There's a challenge, there's a track, you have an idea. And in case you've missed previously, Charles and Donatus did Policy Saturday class on how to write policy memos. So you might want to check that out on our YouTube channel. But with the memo, you sort of have an idea and you want to like bring data to sort of like defend your idea and put it in a way that makes sense, not just to yourself, but also to the policymakers who will be sending that policy memo to. If you come down a step after that, I think you then have op-eds, because op-eds are in less policy language, and because in policy memos, you have policy language, things like theory of change, blah, 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 all of those things that policy people will understand. But I think with op-eds, you understand that it's not just policymakers or policy people in quotes that will get to read your work. So you tone it down a bit more. You put your idea out there, you put data as well, just as you have from policy memos. But if you look at the extreme right, you would see that I talked about like gossip blogging. It's something that gossip blogging does very well. And that's something that I think that I'm personally trying to learn and hack, because they have a way of getting people to pay attention. I don't know how they do it. Like, I don't know if it's the catchy words they use or the videos or something, but they just have a way of making people to just follow through. Insta blogs, comment section is always buzzing. If you compare that to like a serious platform, for example, you have maybe like 2 comments or 3 comments versus 20,000, 10,000, 5,000 comments, in a particular post on Insta blog. So the way I often think of it is bring your ideas from writing a policy memo with data and facts and everything, and bring your ideas from how gossip blogs do it. I mean, don't water down your content, but find a way to ensure that even as you're arguing for data, you would also add some bit of humor, some bit of light, wit, just to ensure that people are able to assimilate it more, knowing that it's not just policy people in quotes who get to read that particular work. And I'm sure Charles will give you an example as we go forward. Okay, so where do you start? First, I think the most important part about an op-ed is that the first thing is an op-ed is supposed to make an argument. Think of it as more like an argumentative essay. I mean, those of us who did argumentative essay in school, right? You know that it's about a position and you're trying to defend and explain why this position you're taking makes more sense. Most times when op-eds are not making an argument or pushing forward a particular point or ideology, they end up just being like a summary piece where they're just like, oh, this is what happened. This is what this one is saying. This is what that one is saying. And that's often how journalists often write, actually. So if you're in news, I used to work in the media space for quite a while. If you're telling a news story, you're balancing, you're saying, okay, this guy said this, and this guy said this, and this one said this, and this is what's happened. And you present that to the audience and let the audience make their decision. But with an op-ed, you're not trying to tell anybody what the various sides are. Instead, you're actually trying to reinforce your own points and explain why. In fact, if you even mention any of the other side's arguments, you're trying to show why yours is more superior, to that other person's argument. So you're trying to assert something. People should read your op-ed and feel like there's something, like you've said something, you're explaining something, you're pushing something. There's an idea that you put forward that basically makes sense. We give a few examples here. Well, I mean, if you read these titles, you can already see where the op-ed is going. Fuel subsidy removal, clean energy as an affordable alternative for Nigerian businesses. You see where this is going. It's not going to tell you about, oh, maybe let's use small gen, let's use a past my neighbor gen. It's telling you that it's clean energy, it's solar, it's wind energy, it's biodiesel. How do we work on this to support small businesses in Nigeria? The second one, Nigerians are formally educated, but informally employed. This is something Charles and I wrote. Again, it tells you that we're arguing for informal employment, and while the informal sector needs to be supported. Again, there are so many more examples if you check online. I'll just move forward now. And hand over to Charles. Okay, I'll take this slide, and then Charles, you can then come in. Okay, the next point to note, again, don't forget that we're giving you a few points. First point is to make an argument. Don't be passive. Ensure that you're trying to accept something. The next point is understand that op-eds are short. So if you remember the spectrum, I told you that research reports can be like 500 pages. Policy memos, we usually give 1,000 words, but we say you can, if you want to stretch it, you can make it 1,500 words or 2,000 words, at the very top. But op-eds are somewhere between 700 to 1,000 words. I mean, the less, the better, because you want to be able to capture people's attention. And you agree with me that attention spans are dropping over and over again. So it's very important that you're able to get people's attention with the least number of words and also pass your message. So think of it very short. Don't try to rewrite your policy memo. That's another thing that you can easily get into. Just keep it short keep it focused, go straight to the point and make your points in a simple, in a logical way, in a clear way. They say a middle schooler, let's a primary school or basic school person be able to read your memo, your op-ed, and understand what you're trying to say. It should be very easy, short sentences, avoid like too many semicolons and complex. Just keep it simple, keep it easy, so people can understand what you mean. And then I mentioned keeping it light earlier, right? So this screenshot is the article that's one of the op-eds that Charles and I wrote about the informal sector. If you look at the title there, we said formal education in the mud, right? I mean, we try to use like local parlance, things people can understand, keeping it light, keeping it funny, because that's how people will continue to read, right? Once you keep it light, people can easily assimilate and they can laugh about it and they can move on and continue to read your piece. So I'll hand over to Charles now at this point as he takes us forward.
Thank you so much, Ebenezar. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all for making out the time to join. I'll just try to talk a bit about some of the things he has put in the formal slide. So he talked about brevity and the need to make your write-up very concise, especially the sentences and the paragraphs. So there's this idea we always sell in the policy world. It is called KISS. It is KISS. It is keep it short and simple. So if you're developing an op-ed, you put keys at the back of your mind, it will help you a lot. The reason why you need to make a write-up short and simple is because you're bringing in someone into a place where you think you have like an advantage, where you think that you're an authority, right? So you need to make it very easy, such a way that the complex idea is broken down into bits, and then the person is familiar. So for instance, the way I work, or the way we work in my office, you're expected to read at least 20 articles on a particular topic, especially when you're not knowledgeable in that field. So what it helps you do is to make you sort of an authority that understands the intricacies, the arguments that are available, and that way you can shape your thought around it. So when you have read at least 20 articles and publications and all of that on that topic, it is easier for you to now, think through it and come up with your own argument. So if someone is supposed to read 20 articles, the person should be able to read only just your own and understands the crux of what you're arguing about. The person is supposed to be like authority. So it's just like entering a new environment. You pack into a new environment, and it takes you 2 to 3 weeks to understudy the environment, know where the market is, where the shops are, where the supermarket is. It takes you that long period. You're supposed to write in your op-ed, someone is supposed to understudy the environment under maybe 1 day or 2 days, because you have been able to break it down. You have been able to bring out the very key and important arguments. You have traced history. You've brought in facts and data, and your work is now robust. It was George Orwell in his book Politics and English, or something, in his essay Politics and English, said, if you can cut out a word, please go ahead to cut it out. So making a word concise is very, very important in writing an op-ed. Think about it that you want to write something, like you want someone in Japan, for example, that knows how to speak English, and you want the person to read it. You won't be saying, I traveled, I hastily moved fast. You can simply just say, I moved fast, right? So if there are words that are stale, that are redundant, you break them out. So I want to recommend, there's this write-up I read that I felt everybody should write. It's called How to Harness the Power of Brevity by one Rachel Nixon. If you go online, check it online. Yeah, it's the recommended reading. The use of infographics. I'll just go to what is in front of me. So you break your argument into distinct paragraphs. So the way it is, one sentence should communicate a point. So if you're writing about something and you've been able to conceptualize it, you can bullet point all of what you want to talk about per paragraph. So when you're writing, one sentence is saying something, the second one is a variety or like a little tweaking from the initial one, but it's passing a distinct information. So it has to logically flow sentence by sentence and then paragraph by paragraph. So every paragraph originally you should have like a thought around it with distinct sentences. When you move to the next paragraph, it's like a different idea, but not totally, exclusive of the first one, but it's like a new field. And then you're, really now the points one by one. You see a lot of people write and, they kind of write monotonously. You see in a paragraph, you can see a sentence that has about 8 lines, So when the person is reading, you cannot connect back to the initial thoughts around the thing. So when the person is reading this 4th, 5th, 7th line, the person is already lost in the thoughts. So, and that's why it's very important to spell these things out clearly. And in the work I do, for example, in the op-ed I and Ebenezar wrote, you see the breakdown of data using infographics. So we didn't waste our time because if you want to come and write it in text, you make a whole lot of explanation. So we just simply came out and said, look, this is what unemployment rate is using a chart, a bar chart. This is underemployment using a column chart and all of those things. And because we have all the AI tools and all of the online tools available, I didn't stress to go to Excel. Normally I use Excel to do analysis, even Eben as well. But we went to data wrapper, we imported the Excel spreadsheet and then automatically generated the information we are looking for with few iterations here and there. So it's important to use infographics because infographics is important when you want to present stats, statistics, you want to push out a complex information and you're thinking about how to tweak a sentence around it and there's data for it. You simply use infographics. For example, you can see the one on the screen, it's IELTS and DLF. That's IELTS for English and then the French proficiency test. You can see how the comparison was made. This is this versus this. And if someone looks at it at first, you already know that, okay, IELTS is unnecessarily expensive. And it's even beneficial to write, the French proficiency test because it is valid for life, while the other one expires every 2 years. So, clear information that shows the angle or the argument you are making. And then it said, be sure to use references and hyperlinks. So in the course of work, I have noticed that sometimes you put in a hyperlink and someone somewhere has some functions on their PDF document and they can access it, they click it and it doesn't open. So whenever you hyperlink, you double check to ensure that, whatever you're hyperlinking can be accessed and the correct information you want people to go for extensive reading is found on that hyperlink. So it's very important you cross-check. Otherwise, you could do footnotes. You could do footnotes depending, but footnotes make it look too academic sometimes. So that's why hyperlink is easier because when you generate the footnotes and all of that, although there are tools you can use to generate footnotes or references in full these days that are ethically okay and acceptable. So hyperlink sources is very important, especially when the idea is not originally yours. Just reference it to avoid any drama. Use active voice. Yes, there's a whole lot around active stroke passive. So why passive is not generally it's not a grammatical blunder, a grammatical error to use a passive tone, but it is advisable to use active, voice tones in your writing. It makes your work less clumsy, and it gives you some form of life and energy, unlike the passive tone. So use passive sentences or words, or you use them when there's nothing you can do about it and you have to use it, and use it especially when you're talking about something or somebody and you're not about who it is directed at. You can use passive words. The next slide, please. Yeah, so this is like a structure, like a breakdown of how you should structure your op-ed. It is not 100%, even though it's from Harvard, it is not 100% because what people want to see is how creative you are in telling your story. So sometimes there are, you need to add some bit of creativity. I mean, writing is a beautiful thing because sometimes you can play around concepts, but I feel this is like a platform, like you setting the stage to write. So in the first 2 and 3 paragraphs, you talk about, like, you capture the idea. What do you care? Why are you writing what you're writing? Where is the argument? Where is the entire write-up going into? In fact, the way I approach my writing is the first sentence is already telling you what we are discussing. For example, I want to write an oil industry in Nigeria. I can say Nigeria is facing an oil theft challenge. It's just about 4 or 5 words, and you already know where this conversation is headed. It makes the reader, it captures the person's interest to want to see why you say it's a problem, right? So another one is the setup. What is this column about, which I've talked about before? What's your overarching point? So in the background, talking about history, talking about the issue, you should be able to talk about where you're going to, the overarching point of their essay. The next one is the 4 to 5 paragraphs, the diagnosis. This is where you now make your clear arguments, like the body of the work, where you can, you may want to use top titles to explain what you're saying. If you saw what Ebenezar presented before, he talked about formal education in the mud. So it's like you going deep into the discussion to talk about the key issues. So the next paragraph, the next one is the 4 to 5. You also talk about the solution. The solution elements can come in as the way forward, the recommendations, and all of that. I think this can even come at the end, but it's creative writing somehow, so you want to do it the way you best know it. Next one is 1 to 2 paragraphs talking about what the other arguments, what other scholars are saying, or what other thinkers like you have said, and how it is relevant. The final one is a call to action. What do you want the reader to do? Beyond just reading, how will you capitalize or optimize the information you have received to do something better or push for the struggle. So if you are totally, you can just put something there that the person should go to change.org, for example, and vote. So I'll run this thing very fast. So yeah, this is revise. So in my experience, sometimes you write and in your head, this is coming out clear and clean, right? And if you use a fresh set of eyes, maybe say, let me read this thing tomorrow morning again, you're seeing what you wrote and you're like, how can I come up with this? So it's very important to revise. Even the best writers do not have a piece at first attempt. So share with your team or colleagues to help you read and review. It is very important. It is as good as writing something. So you can have the best. You can be you have won so many awards on writing and all of that, but you cannot leave out the fact that you have to continuously revise what you have done. You continuously share with people. Personally, I struggled with it because you're doing a good work and you're giving someone to review, and the person is coming back with red pen criticism of your work. It can be very painful, but because you want the best out of it, you have to revise and revise and revise. And me, whenever I'm giving a task, I want to be very fast about it. I want to be smart and sharp. So one other thing you have to watch out for is patience. You have to build that level of patience to really do the work. You can tell yourself, I'll write this thing in 2 days. And when you have done your research, you're seeing that there are new insights that you must pull in. You give yourself more time, and by time, if you have a delivery, you tell them, give me 2 more days. Because you want to do something that you can come back to and you're proud of it. You want to do something that can earn you some recognition. You want to do something that you can be called upon to offer services. Like yesterday, I posted some work I did in the past. Someone told me I should come and do a job for him this coming week. And before you know what's happening, I got a contract to do the job and all of that. So you want to do something that people can call you or, back and say, oh, you could do this thing for me, write this piece for me, do this policy, do this op-ed, what do you think? It's very important. So every intellectual property is properly credited. Ensure that it's credited, including graphs, charts, you reference properly, wherever you source an information from, give credit, include your contact information at the end of the op-ed so that you can be reached by interested parties. Very key. So I told you someone reached out to me. Mostly sometimes even people you don't know who say, okay, I like this, your argument. Can you come and sit on a panel and discuss it? A colleague of mine wrote a piece on Business Day, and he was invited to AIT to come and speak on it. AIT wasn't satisfied with they were impressed with his presentation, both in written and spoken form. They came to the office to interview him like a follow-up. So if you want to do very well, it is important you put your contacts, your handles. People should be able to reach you because they already know what you're doing. Is this the last? Okay, yeah, these are potential platforms in Nigeria where you can, publish your op-ed. I think you write to the editors. Most of them have a guideline, but you write to the editors and, sell the idea. If they agree, you can send and they review. So there's Heritage Times, Citizens, the Coco, the Herald, Punch, the Cable, Premium Times, Opinion Nigeria, and the Nigerian Voice, Daily Trust. There are a lot of them, and there are even international ones like Washington Post, the Republic. Some of them are even paid. If you meet their criteria and publish, they pay you for it. So you want to share your idea and at the same time gain recognition and at the same time get paid for it. So I hope some of these things are taken into noted. So this is a sample of the one we wrote. Generally, we try to talk about how we talked about a lot of things, but the central idea is that the government can cash in on the informally employed Nigerians and provide them the necessary support they need. Do they need social safety nets? You need to create a ministry or that will take care of their needs. Do you need to put them on pension? So we try to talk about where Nigeria is ranking in global unemployment. We try to talk about unemployment versus underemployment, which I think is even the problem because you can be employed and then you're underemployed. You're working like an elephant and eating like an ant. There are a lot of Nigerians like that. We try to talk about how it became worse after COVID. So, formal education in the mud, those days, it's like if you don't go to school, you're losing out in life. Everybody's going to school, but most people are not paid off the education they get. People go to school and come out and learn a trade or get a skill and do other things that pay them. So it's only people like me now that read political science that kind of can brag and say, okay, I'm doing something related to what I read. Talk about government policies and all of those. It's only few people, but then not everybody. So formal education, we argued that it was in the mud. And then we talked about Nigerians' unemployment rate by academics. So it's like the more you're educated, the less you get employed, right? So doctorate 17%, masters 28%. It's not encouraging as at the time we wrote it. We talked about creative hustle. So Ebenezar talked about how you can make it a bit fun. So we tried to talk about MC with an MSc. So the creativity about writing should always come in. We talked about how that sector is employing a lot of people, either as DJs, as hype men, as photographers, and all of that. We talked about what government has done to balance the argument, did a bit of recommendations, and that was where we stopped. I'm sure Ebenezar will talk about the other two articles we wrote so that we'll move forward. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Charles. That was really, really well done. I'll just share just a quick example. This was written. This was the example I shared earlier. It was written when we started the Reform Ayers campaign, November 2nd, 2021. basically just, I mean, you've heard everything Charles said, basically the same format. You know, we opened it with, I mean, this was written by me, so I shared my personal experience of having to engage an American university on this particular issue. And, you know, we went on to question why, you know, the Home Office has this particular list of how many countries that are, you know, there's not even one African country. Charles talked about being creative. So there are times when you use things like capital letter and say not even one to stress the fact that, you know, there's not even one African country. I mean, use things like italics and bolding to share your thoughts and to make some certain things clear. Yeah, I mean, then we use data. Charles talked about data earlier. That's very key. This was Excel. I mean, Charles mentioned Excel. This is Google Sheets, to be honest. You know, just put in the data, plot the table, creates add charts, and I think it gives you something automatic. Then you now decide to choose whether you want to move it to pie chart or or histogram or whatever it is, or line graph. So yeah, it's all these tools are left for you and they are at your disposal. So don't feel like they're verified. This was Canva as well, so it's not like anything perfect. So yeah, I mean, basically just sharing data, and then, you know, Charles mentioned using subheadings, right? So you notice that we talked about, I think after this screenshot of the email that we sent, and then we talked about why we think that this doesn't make sense, right? We then said the cost is one of them. We used the bullet points, talked about the cost, used the bullet point, talked about the expiration period. Why does it have to expire after every 2 years? We brought in some linguistic theory as well, consulted some linguistic people and read a line and found out that, you know, there's explanation around linguistic theory, how people do not forget something that you're born in, right? So we use that to also defend and explain. Talked about the other languages that's, you know, that are spoken in other countries that are exempted from writing the tests, you know. So we also talked about how many languages are spoken in these countries. One of the countries, Guyana, has, I think, like 19 or 18 languages. So we said that's if you can exempt that country, why not exempt, you know, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, etc. So again, yeah, we collected videos. This was a screenshot of, this is a video embedded of the vice president talking about the issue. Yeah. So I mean, again, like I said, is the example that Charles gave from Harvard Kennedy School is a classic op-ed style, but again, you're not bound to following that. You can definitely build your own way, build your own style. It's creative writing. Feel free to build it as you want. And just in case you try to reach out to platforms, nobody publishes your work, there's Medium, guys. There's Medium, there's LinkedIn Pulse. And as far as you have a LinkedIn account, you can create an article. With a Twitter account, you can create Medium account and you can write your piece. So this was one I wrote recently, asking the president to rename the PH airport to the Kensa International Airport. Again, from the way you start, you explain why this whole thing is very key. Your first paragraph, you explain that. I use subheadings for this piece as well. Talk about the Nigerian minority. I go on to explain history and, you know, why certain airports are named after certain people. And then I go on to say, here are the 3 reasons why I believe, you know, so person would be a good fit for the airport. I then go on to give the 3 reasons in bullet points. Then close it with Mr. President, we are watching. Remember, I'm using the active voice. Again, you don't want to overstretch. You don't say, Mr. President, you know, we hate you or something. You don't want to stretch it too far. But at the same time, you want to be able to use a voice that shows that asserts a positive, you know, it's almost like you are involved in this. It's not, you're not just writing this as a one-off thing. You know, this is something that connects with you, something you're really, really passionate about. So yeah, we go on to say, Mr. President, we're watching, and then explain all of these things, talk about facts, and then of course include your short bio and links to your social media handle. So that's, again, we can't cover creative writing, I think, takes years and years to master, but we definitely cannot cover every single thing about creative writing in a short 40-minute class. However, I think that these tips that, you know, Charles and I have shared around revising, you know, keeping these tips in mind, we're going to add the link to the deck in the YouTube post. So just look out for that. Subscribe to us on YouTube and also put on our post notification so you find that. But yeah, all of these tips are just tips I think you should think about. And again, for those who, something we forgot to mention, for those who apply for the hack, we're putting together a database of all of these platforms with their emails to the editors and all those platforms. Charles will also contribute to that. And then for those who apply for the hackathon, we'll be sharing that with you too, so that once you're done, you'll be able to, you know, use these contacts to share your policy brief. And then we have an MOU with Citizens Ikoko, one of the urban platforms for like Gen Zs to engage with policy and politics and all those kind of things. So they also publish the work that we also do. So we'd also be happy to connect your policy, your op-ed, your ideas as well to that platform for those who are able to apply. So that's also a way of saying, make sure you apply for Naija Policy Hackathon. Yeah, thank you. I can see Elizabeth is giving me thumbs up. Okay. So do we have any questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Eben. Thank you, Charles. So yeah, if you have questions, and not just questions, but if you have comments or contributions, or you want to expand on any of the ideas that Ebenezar and Charles have shared, you can, just indicate so that we can take them. Any questions? Contributions? Okay, it doesn't seem like we have any. So Eben, I'll just pass it over to you to talk a bit about the policy hackathon that is coming up in August, so we can wrap up with that. Thank you so much, Eben. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you so much, Terry. And again, thank you, Charles, for the wonderful session. Just as a quick reminder, we've confirmed all of our speakers and confirmed, oh, thank you. Says, I found the session valuable. Thank you for saying that. We've confirmed speakers, we've confirmed judges, I think all is set. We've confirmed so many things, and the team is working alongside the organizing team to ensure that everything you need for that weekend of hacking would be available. Again, the date is August 11th to August 13th. August 12th is International Youth Day, and we think that there's no better way to spend International Youth Day than, working with other young people from within Nigeria, outside Nigeria, to develop solutions to problems Nigeria faces. I don't know if there's any other way to, what's the best way to spend International Youth Day, right? So we just think that it's a wonderful time. We've also confirmed our keynote speaker, Ndidi Okonkwo-Nwuneli, who has founded so many organizations, including Leap Africa, that some of you might know because of the youth work that Leap does. So please do well to apply, register, check our social media platforms. We have the last Policy Saturday class coming up next week. It will be on team building. So do well to also attend that. It would help you to also understand, because we know last year, some people had questions around how to form teams and issues with working with people that they didn't know. When Terry, we've said this over and over, but when Terry, Chimdi, Kenny, Toby, and Comfy and I worked together on our first hackathon, we knew ourselves, maybe a couple of us knew ourselves, but from working in the office. But this was a different space, and this was a different, for the first time, we all had to do a hackathon. So it was a different thing, and we all got in together on that and worked on that. And who knows, if we didn't even do that, maybe there'll be no policy shapers today, and no policy Saturday, and no, everything else, reform IELTS and all that's basically happened. So so you never know where your team will be. Maybe in a few years, we'll be attending a global policy, symposium that your team will be organizing, or you'll be building something in the future that will develop and make Nigeria a better place. So just look forward to that session next week. Kenny will be taking that session along with another guest. So please do well to attend. And I think that's the announcement we have for today. Thank you again for joining. The video from this session will be uploaded to our YouTube channel as usual. And yeah, let's keep doing our best to make Nigeria better. Thank you,
everybody.
Yeah.
Enjoy
the rest of your evening, everyone. Yeah. Bye, everyone.